here to the Voice of the Microsoft partner. I am in control today along with the rest of the Alliance team here, David and Josh from the business development team. We have taken over the VOMP today. We got a special request. There has been a tremendous amount of changes here for FY26. Things are evolving, and so we felt it would make a lot of sense. We're in the game every single day, right? We're learning about what's changing. We're talking to partners, and we're going through these different, changes. And so we're very excited today to get into some of these different details. So we'll go ahead and get into agents here. Why do we want to talk about this in the first place? If you listen to MCAP Start for Partners, if you listen to any of the monthly calls where Microsoft talks about some of the new focuses for the new year, you probably heard every single person on the call talk about this. I mean, I listened through probably 10 plus hours, and almost every single speaker mentioned the word agent, okay? Now, where is this coming from? I'm going to put this in the chat window just to give you guys a little bit of context. You probably have heard this term, the frontier firm. Microsoft's been talking quite a bit about, okay? In their mind, AI is the next wave of technology services. It's the biggest opportunity in their mind. They've actually quantified it. They said that when looking through the lens, agents along with security are the two potential largest places for growth for partners, according to what they see in FY26. And so if you look at the snip I sent in the chat window, you'll notice that they want to put partners along this journey in 3 different stages, okay? The first stage is around a human with an assistant. And if you start thinking about what has Microsoft done, that was the FY25 focus. That was Copilot chat, right? Getting people comfortable and understanding how to work with a large language model. But the time has come to move on to stage 2. And that's why, in my mind, FY26 is all about agents. It's human-led agents. No longer is it an assistant that can help you finish tasks more quickly. It's about actually having that assistant do that task themselves, building in the knowledge into that assistant so that it can automate that entire process. And if you look at stage 3, some of us here might be slightly concerned because it's human-led, agent-controlled processes where now we're actually replacing the need for people on the team, right? We're going from learning how to work with an AI to telling the AI how to work to having the AI actually be a dedicated resource inside of the organization. That is the flow that Microsoft is looking towards. And so this year, we're geared on agents. What are some potential examples here that you can be thinking about? Where they talk about from a simple agent to an advanced agent, and we're talking something that's just recall to something that's actually actively completing a process, right? So maybe it's just an IT help desk agent where somebody's got a question, it searches through the information that's got access to, and then it spits out an answer for you. Or maybe it's as complex as a customer support rep, where somebody brings in a question, it can evaluate it, it can understand it, give an answer, send it to the correct resource. A lead gen agent, right? A management agent. There's a lot of different examples here. I just want to give you something to kind of think about. How might I start implementing this inside of my business? And I always think, it's kind of side note, it's always better to do it yourself and understand it in order for you to be able to speak to it with your customers. Michael, yes, absolutely. We'll send this to you, no problem. Oftentimes, and I know partners over the last year, there's been a lot of different changes, right? You sometimes need to get your own personal experience. You need to get your own feet wet to really understand the situation that the customer is experiencing to help them answer some of these different questions. They kind of see this as Copilot chat and Copilot are getting people comfortable. Again, you saw at stage 1 using some of these AI services, and then you build AI agents together to help them really build AI into what they do as a business. However, they don't want you to just sell those solutions. If you go to the next slide, they want you to build a service on top of those solutions, right? Microsoft, again, they have the engine where you can go build some of these services from scratch or use a template to get the majority of the way there. But what they don't have is the resources you guys have on staff to speak that vision to your customers, right? The reason they work with a partner channel in the first place is because you guys can extend their capabilities that much further, that much more quickly. And so Microsoft sees this as the new business line, right? Long time ago, all of a sudden we went from Microsoft Word 2005 to Microsoft 365. Then, we went from on-premises to Azure in the cloud. We're now going from AI on your phone to AI built in with managed services from a partner. So they don't want you to just be able to create the solution for your customer. They want you to actually go through the process of building a managed services practice specific to AI. That's where they see the vision for partners here over the next year. And Microsoft is making this a core component of FY26. They did not stop talking about this on every presentation. I cannot emphasize that enough. If you guys aren't doing this today, I would highly suggest you guys think through how you can start building towards this. Or the other option is go find another partner that's already there, right? Somebody who's got the skills and the capabilities. If you don't think you're going to be able to develop that in-house, look to somebody who's already built that out that can help you basically white label those services for your customers. Because here's the reality. The customer's going to be talking about this internally constantly. I mean, think about how many ads you're getting on AI. I mean, it's everywhere, right? And so it's a natural part of the conversation. And so if you're not bringing this to the table, somebody else will. And so
back in May, of course, before we get to July, the incentives were spread for when it comes to Azure incentives and priorities reinforced and structured refresh. In May, it was more focused on Azure incentives were spread across several different buckets: migrate and modernize, innovate, ISV success, advance, and cloud accelerating factor. And what Microsoft decided to change in this, which shouldn't really impact more partners, is they consolidated it down all to what they call the Azure Accelerate program, meaning now the deals can be like migrate and modernize SAP, VMware, data AI, apps, agents, and developers are all the key focuses of Microsoft, but also now consolidated, making it much easier for the client. And for those who don't know and understand what the Azure Accelerate is at a high level, again, it's more of an Excel or a more consolidated process focused on, again, VMware data platform, etc. But what that means for you is the most important. It's a more simplified structure, clear priorities, funding and support, predictable payouts, and definitely, more higher accountability for partners to meet these requirements. So they're trying to make it easier for you from a back-end perspective versus have it being scattered through multiple different avenues. So the key takeaway from that is, do fewer things, but do bigger and better. That's Microsoft's quote unquote perspective and maximizing those fundings. So from a rebate perspective, rebates are not going to change. The only thing in short that's going to change is the promotional offers. That being said, is now that Microsoft's released M365 E3, E5, that, you can get a 3-year term subscription and a 10% promotional discount, and things like Copilot 365, they can get those 15% discount for those that want to extend that.
And Josh, if I could just add in a little bit here, I want to emphasize they tested out last quarter of last year the SMB funding path for Azure opportunities, and this has been absolutely made a priority here for all of FY26. So if you think, there's no way for me to get there because I can't get an Azure specialization, if you're driving under $1 million in Azure consumption and you get that solution designation, well, guess what? All of a sudden, I do have access, in fact, to Azure funding for any of these different opportunities. On top of that, if you never tried out the Accelerate Factory, I encourage you guys to. You're getting free technical resources from Microsoft. Why not give it a shot, So I just want to emphasize that. Some really cool things that they've made, they put it in stone here for this new year. So
Microsoft now wants you to do the more before perspective, which they are happy to fund as long as you meet those compliances. And what I mean by that is saying, hey, oh, you're on CrowdStrike solution, or you're on this firewall solution. Let's migrate you over to Sentinel or Microsoft Defender or a better MFA. They want you to develop workshops or assessments ahead of time now, which, is more developed around the business outcomes and goals focused on that specific business, saying, hey, these are the things that you could use it for. These are the things that we can help you with. And generally educating the customer on the solution first versus just deploying the solution and teaching them along the way. So Microsoft's motto from this is not just doing the work, but building the intent behind it.
The security one is very exciting. I told all of my partners about this one because previously, historically, you've needed a specialization in order to get access to any of these dollars. And what they did this year is they actually opened it up to designation partners as well. So if you have a solution designation in security, which typically you're going to be able to get to if you add some additional certifications, if you already have the modern work, you're going to be in a position where you can run briefings, events on some of these different topics. And you can also then, from that event, drive those consumers to workshops that you'll also get funded. And then if you have a specialization, you'll be able to get some additional funding if you sell a certain amount of licenses as well. So they've really opened up the dollars that have come available for this track. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they know when AI becomes a core component of what you're trying to do, security needs to be a foundational element to everything.
And so the first thing I want to tackle today is taking a look at some of the new requirements and differences between being a direct bill or an indirect reseller. All right. There's some major changes here, especially if you are direct. And so let's go ahead and get into this. The bar has raised for direct bill partners. And the bar itself is more attainable now if you are indirect. Let's talk about direct though for a second. Let's focus here. For this current fiscal, if you are direct, you need a SPD specific to the solution area in 1 million. The previous threshold was 300,000 in the trailing 12 months in terms of revenue. There's no more gold, silver competency. It's gone. With the raised bar, if you've been operating direct, this is a pivotal time to take a look at your business and reevaluate whether or not you should stay direct, right? Are you going to be able to stay in compliance? Is attaining the SPDs that you do most of your business in something that is easily within reach? Or is this going to take a longer amount of time and we're going to miss out on a boatload of money in the meantime, right? So we'd be happy to speak with anyone that's in that bucket specifically and, just kind of talk one-on-one to give some more guidance here. As it relates to indirect, I mentioned the bar is a little bit more attainable. Here's what I mean by that. Beforehand, to earn incentives in a solution area, you needed an SPD. But with the new changes for FY26, you need 25 points, which technically speaking could just be certification points specific to the solution area incentive, and 25,000 trailing 12 months. Now this is evaluated every month, right? It's dynamic, it's looked at every month, but it includes the last 5. Meaning, let's say this month, you're at 25 points. You're an indirect, you're at 25 in modern work. Let's say for whatever reason, next month, you drop down to call it 10 points. You're still gonna earn incentives next month because Microsoft takes a look at the current month along with the trailing 5. And you just have to be eligible one time within that current and the trailing 5 to earn incentives. Just be within that eligibility window. Now, there are a lot of indirect partners who, we can probably safely assume are going to see an increase year over year in incentives because of this new bar, right? It's been lowered, it's more attainable. But I also want to point out that the 25 point and the 25,000 threshold, this only has to do with incentives. This has nothing to do with IURs, right? Which is where a lot of the benefits come from when it comes to getting an SPD, right? Especially modern work. When you look at the amount of E5 licenses you get, it's substantial. What do we say it is, Andres? The rough value on that whole package? It's something like
Microsoft
$100,000,
markets it as over 100,000 in
Yeah.
value.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy, right? So, I point out that, yeah, we've got a 25-point threshold. That's all fine and dandy, but that shouldn't be where, as an indirect reseller, we should cap our goal at, right? We always want to be moving forward towards an SPD, towards a specialization, because without either of those things, all of the funding opportunities that Josh was talking about, we're not going to have access to, right?
Yeah.
On top of that, specific to Azure, right? We talked about getting access to funding for Azure.
Mm-hmm.
And if you leverage the Cloud Accelerate factor, you're a growing business. Ooh. How much money are you saving there by not having to spend money on an additional technical resource? I mean, they're not cheap. So, there's a lot of reasons.
Yeah, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of reasons in some cases. So, but in the short term, the good news is, if you're indirect, you're probably going to see a little bit more money potentially than you have in previous years. Now, you also heard Josh mention some of these categories that you're seeing here on the screen in terms of rebates. And as both Josh and Andres already mentioned, Microsoft is doubling down on security, and AI as being the highest funded place, right? Security offers up to 10.75% accelerators, and AI business process carries the richest incentive, right around 12%. Cloud incentives, a little bit lower at 3%. The big takeaway is this: Microsoft doesn't just want net new, okay? They want extension and expansion within your current customer base. So on this next slide, we're going to take a quick look at an example with expansion of business premium and how payouts compare from last year to this year. So here's an example expansion of what you could earn, right? Taking a look, we see growth from 100 seats of business premium to 200. That's going to give us a core of 1584, an accelerator at 1267, and growth of 1584. You'd earn right around 4,400 in CSP incentives. And if we compare that to last fiscal, we're looking at a 20% bump comparatively. Let's take a look at one more example here. Let's say that you renew a customer at 2,000 seats, but you upsell them from ME3 to ME5. You can see the totals there comes out to about 143,000 in incentives, which same scenario last year, comparatively, this is a 27% increase, a 27% bump. Now, because Microsoft is changing the way that incentives work, there's a little bit of a different way that payouts are going to be calculated for this year. And there's one big piece that I really want to call out. So the effective date for these changes is technically October 1st. But I want to call out July through September. So last month, where we are now, all the way through September, this period is going to be initially calculated under the FY25 rules, right? So the same way that incentives were calculated in the last fiscal, for this specific quarter, that's how they're going to be calculated in the immediate future. If you take a look at that timeline though, and you zip on over to February, this same time frame that we're talking about, that we're in right now, is going to be recalculated and paid out under the FY26 rules. Meaning, as an indirect reseller, you very well may see an additional quarter's worth of incentives money for a solution area if you did have 25 points and 25K trailing 12 months for that specific area, right? So something to look forward to. I wouldn't, don't go out and buy some big old fancy Corvette thinking you're going to get, an extra 50, 60 grand, drop it in your bucket. But just know there could be a little extra change sitting around. So
obviously we're always here if you guys want to have a conversation. If there's any questions, we're more than happy to help you guys out. I did also want to give another shout out here. Next month, we're going to be talking about AI agents as well, how winning partners are using AI agents and going to market. So if you're more interested in learning about that topic, we'll be talking about that at length as well here in September. So got a lot of cool things here in the pipeline. Well, good luck hunting. There's a lot of business out there for everybody. So best of luck to everybody. Much appreciated. Feel free to connect with us if you have any additional questions.